So good morning, everybody. Morning. The atmosphere seems a little bit dull this morning. Do we need to do some exercises to really stretch and, get those juices flowing? Do we need to do some exercises? No? Yes? Some people are like, please, I have high blood pressure. Good morning, Mr. Deputy Governor, good morning, sir. Honorable Commissioner, good morning. Distinguished members of the Lagos State Executive Committee, welcome. Thank you for gracing this occasion with your presence. Members of the permanent secretaries, body of permanent secretaries in Lagos, our distinguished guests from Morocco, Egypt, Kenya, Rwanda, and from all over, those watching at home as well. Welcome to AOT 4.0. And I think that I would like to ask for a round of applause for our team for making it to the 4th edition of AOT. It's not particularly easy because if this is the 4th edition, then for those that are coming for the first time, what were the other 3 editions, the previous 3 editions about? Well, that's what I'm here to brief you on the journey so far. And in Lagos, as we know today, Lagos State is, number one, the biggest state in terms of population, even though with the smallest land size. But what it lacks in the size of its land, it more than makes up for in the diversity of talent that is in Lagos. And that is why today, Lagos State can boast among the top technology ecosystems on the continent. And why AOT? AOT was devised to showcase that particular ecosystem that is in Lagos. And in showcasing Lagos, it has now become one of the biggest technology exchange platforms in Nigeria, right? Where we bring together, as you can see, civic authorities and private sector individuals to co-create and to dimension what the solutions of tomorrow will be. And today will be no different. Now, let me give you some background. Our first AOT event brought the first Lagos State Innovation and Technology Master Plan. That master plan had a number of pillars that we said to ourselves that if we can intervene with certain initiatives in these pillars, we think that the ecosystem will be the better for it. And that first AOT event is what all the other AOT events stand on, because that was the first that released the master plan. And today, we are addressing one of the strategic pillars of that master plan, talent. So, as I was saying, Lagos State is one of the key economic, or the key economic driver for Nigeria. And for the estimates, whatever estimates that you see, whether online or through research papers, about 77 new residents from all over Nigeria migrate into Lagos every single day. Now, that is a tremendous challenge in itself. The question is, how do you manage such an enormous population with such a very static landmass? We need to apply technology. And so, over the years, between 2019 and 2021, Lagos State has emerged the #1 startup investment capital in Africa, right? In terms of volume of deals that have been made. So, and why is this so? If we look at the startup sectors, right, as we can see, fintech is by far the biggest sector, and that is because of a number of things. There are very clear policies in the financial services industry. There's a lot of investment, and just the promise of onboarding a lot of people from the informal economy into the formal economy. So those are the factors that are driving the fintech revolution, right? But as we can see, some other sectors are also catching up. We have e-commerce, e-health, ed-tech, mobility and logistics, recruitment and HR. Agri-tech has also been very promising. That is also climbing up. And so, as you can see, there is tremendous growth happening in the different startup subsectors. So, what are we looking at? About 107 technology startups have raised funding in Lagos to the tune of $750 million in 2022 alone. That in itself is a record. Now, why is this happening? Right? Because there have been many things that we've been doing to encourage and to make sure the ecosystem is ripe for this investment. And it's the place where investors come to, not just because of the size of the market, but because of the potentialities of return on investment. Okay. All right, so what we are seeing is that between 20,000 and 50,000 people are employed by different startups across the subsector, across the innovation sector. And so that is a significant number, but a lot of these talents are employed in very deep technology work. When you talk about AI, application development, and different areas, product management, cybersecurity, health tech, different sectors. So that's quite a significant number. But as we go on, you will see why this number needs to increase. Now, what are some of the enablement levers? What has been making Lagos State the #1 startup capital, right? We have the hubs and co-working spaces that have been doing quite a bit to incubate, to accelerate this the startups in this sector. We have the university initiatives. I think we have the Vice Chancellor of UNILAG here, who is a strong proponent of innovation. I think one of the first innovation activities that I attended when I got into this office was at UNILAG. And so the Professor Ogundikpe Innovation Challenge is also a big one in UNILAG. And so our universities have been contributing to the growth of this ecosystem as well. And of course, local and foreign VC investments. These levers have been driving the growth in our ecosystem. So, as I said, Lagos is now the #1, of course, in Nigeria. It's #1 in Western Africa. #1 in Sub-Saharan Africa. Somebody must have missed that particular detail in this slide. But from 91, over the past 3 years, Lagos has gone up to 81 in the global rankings. Please, I think this deserves a round of applause. So between 2019 and 2021, over 120% increase in venture capital inflow came into Lagos. And this resulted in about $1.5 billion in investments for different startups in 2021 alone. So that was a record. In Nigeria, a total of about $1.7 billion, and Lagos State had 1.5. So that tells you the size and the importance of Lagos as an ecosystem. Now, we are only scratching the surface. Those numbers I've showed you, these are the beginnings of something much, much bigger. And we recognize that in Lagos State. So what did we do? We came up with the Lagos State Innovation and Technology Master Plan, right? And that's what I'm showing you over there. These are some of the strategic pillars that we told ourselves that if we are able to intervene, then we can see a 10x, a 20x of this ecosystem. And these strategic pillars are access, talent, funding, infrastructure, diversity and inclusion, communication and advocacy, and policy. Let me walk you through some of the things that we've been doing, that Lagos State as a government has been doing in these areas. For access, this is primarily concerned with data access. One of the key things when the Office of Innovation and Technology was formed And we went around to different conferences just like this, and we talked to people on the ground, developers, product managers. You know, some of the things they told us was like, why do African countries like hiding their data? You know, you go to, say, the city of Miami, for instance, or the city of New York, and you are able to get data on different functional areas, different civic areas. And so it was important because we got that feedback and we said, look, it's very important for us to make data available. But to make data available, we have to digitize it. And so we started with the Open Government Project, which is also codenamed ECO 360. And ECO 360 is digitizing millions of data points across every subsector in Lagos State. So from health to budget to education, and making that data available to stakeholders within the ecosystem, whether it's for developers to make better fit for purpose products, or to investors that need to know what kinds of what is the ecosystem like? What is the size? How many hospitals are in this area as opposed to this area? And so far, over 1 million data sets have been digitized already. There is already a platform, eco360.ng, that is being built to present that data to stakeholders in the ecosystem. Why? Because we think this will move the pendulum for the increase in innovation in Lagos. If there's data, then more fit-for-purpose products can be built, more products that are relevant to the civic environment can be built. So the ECO 360 project was launched, and that is still ongoing, digitizing millions of data sets and making it available to stakeholders. Of course, we also have Startup Lagos. An investor told me in 2019, 2020, says, how many startups do we even have in the ecosystem? At that time, we didn't have a number. And so we started the Startup Lagos project to chronicle the entire startup ecosystem for Lagos. How many technology hubs do we have? How many technology companies do we have? What areas are they innovating? Are they in agri-tech? Are they in fintech? And so through the Startup Lagos project, we've chronicled over 2,000 startups in Lagos and 40 innovation hubs. We've also chronicled universities and data points in universities as well as investors, mostly local investors who are interested. And that is on the Startup Lagos platform. I believe the Startup Lagos platform was launched in 2020. Yes, it was launched, but we took it back. We wanted to redefine some of the feature sets because innovators came to us and said, look, we need more feature sets in this area. What if I want to talk to an investor? Maybe, do I have an investor room? What if I want to meet another startup? And so we took it back and we started redesigning the feature sets. And that platform will be fully launched before the end of this year. Okay, infrastructure, of course, very, very important. And currently, we've, one of the major pillars of the Innovation and Technology Master Plan was infrastructure. How can you innovate without infrastructure? How can you build without access to data, without internet penetration? And so one of the key projects that the governor launched was the Metro Fiber Optic Project. And to date, we've laid over 2,900 kilometers of fiber optic cable across different areas. And I think that deserves a round of applause. Major project in this regard. Now, I wanted to take you through some of the other projects we are looking at in funding and in policy. Of course, diversity and inclusion. We are driving programs with in female digital coding because we believe that for most of STEM subjects, we see it's male dominated. So how do we get diversity and inclusion in the mix? And that's what started our Africa Agility program, where we give girls computers for them to learn how to code. And this we started in 2020, and so far we have about 135 girls that have participated. About 70 of them came out with very wonderful applications and products, you know, and that program is still ongoing as well. And of course, communication and advocacy, which is what we are doing today, our AOT event, and of course, other conferences that we try to communicate our interventions across the different sectors, such as GITEX, and our partners from GITEX in Dubai are here as well. So, I wanted to talk to you briefly about our Yaba Kite project. This is part of our infrastructure pillar. We discovered that Yaba, of course, is our startup capital. And how does government come in and turbocharge the area for more growth? What we want to do is we want to transform Yaba into an established ICT park where young people can come, they have the equipment, they have the resources, and they have the infrastructure to be able to innovate at a faster rate, right? And we have started the Yaba Kite project to be able to de-risk innovation for our young people. That project is also going on. And of course, part of that, this is just a mock-up of what we are looking at Yaba. And so it will have innovation labs, offices, industrial labs as well, and of course some residential places. So think of, you're a young person, you want to innovate. Where can you find the resources? Where can you find the rapid prototyping labs? If you have a brain wave quickly, how can I quickly 3D print something? Or how can I quickly build an application? We want Yaba to be that major area because all the ingredients are already there. And so it's just for us to make sure that the infrastructure and all of the enabling things are there as well. And so this is a mock-up of what we expect to see in Yaba over the coming months to years. Okay. I hope I'm not boring anybody. Is this making sense? All right. Okay, last week, some of the things that we have done, because one of our strategic pillars is funding. And over the past 24 months, we've done over $700,000 to 60 startups. And we've also funded R&D projects in universities. And this is very, very important because, of course, funding is always a challenge, right? For startups, for technology builders across the board. And so the Lagos State Science Research and Innovation Council was formed to be able to intervene directly in the funding area. And we've been able to give over 60 startups some of their initial capital for them to scale their products and to enter the market. And we've seen some companies that have gone on to raise even more money in the VC markets and in the private sector markets. But hey, this is all well and good. But while we're here today, we still have some challenges, right? We have macroeconomic challenges, right, that are facing, headwinds that are facing the ecosystem today. Whether it's still access to finance, you know, some of our startups that we gave initial funding to, they need more funding to be able to build new product sets, right? Of course, inflation is a major issue, right? Some people, some of the AWS credits they were paying for 2 years ago have doubled in price. How do we tackle some of those issues? And of course, there are challenges in getting the ecosystem to cohesively collaborate. How do we put exchange points such as this to make sure that startups are also complementing each other, that startups are talking to the right investors or are complementing with other companies that are very important to their services. And so there are many challenges across the board. But you know, one of the biggest issues we have is the talent challenge, which characterizes what we are talking about today. So currently, 3 out of 5, and this is a research study that we conducted, 3 out of 5 ICT engineers are actively processing to exit the country and work in other countries, right? So when you ask them, oh, what are your future plans? Well, you know, I must go, maybe I'll go to the US, I'll go. Are you actively seeking employment elsewhere? Yes, of course I'm seeking. Oh, I'm processing my paper. So, you know, there is a huge talent challenge. How do we deal with that? How do we reverse this, right? Of course, some of them are attributed to macroeconomic challenges, right? And might not be related particularly to the ecosystem. But what are some of the things that we can do to be able to turn some of these figures around? So today, and we did some comparison with some countries, right? This was a study that was done in, I think, about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. So currently, we have about 114,000 developers in our market. But if you look at some of the other countries, you will see big differences. Of course, there are population differences between these countries. But let's look at some other data points to see the challenge. So we are not having enough STEM graduates, right? And so we combed over many reports, you know, NUC report, university reports, and things like that. And we need to invest more in talent training, in capacity building. So today, Nigeria has 72,000 STEM graduates, right? But if you look at numbers between USA and Russia, about 560,000, India, 2.5 million, China, 4.7 million. And of course, we know some of the technology leaders across the globe today are India and China. And these numbers tell you a story about the investment, right, in STEM. And I think this should give some of us in the room an idea as to some of the challenges. And so if we compare that number that I showed earlier, 3 out of 5 engineers. So if 3 out of 5 in 72,000 are trying to migrate, right? So where does that leave the rest? So that whole 72,000, probably not all of them will stay. Some will move to other places. Some will stay definitely. But we need a critical mass of talent within our ecosystem for rapid development. So of course, this is an existential challenge to where we are today, right? If we are going to build a smarter Lagos, which is part of today's theme, how do we solve this issue? So that is why we are here. And what are the event objectives? We have to dimension a talent acceleration framework. Very, very important, right? Of course, the universities are doing their bit. But we see today that the rate of change in technology is monumental. It's always changing. And so policy is not keeping up as fast with the rate of change in technology. Before you know it, there's something new coming out, right? Whether it's in artificial intelligence, in neural networks, right? In application development. I'm a computer science graduate from Temple University in Philadelphia, and I can tell you that most of the programming languages they use today was not what I used when I was in school. And so I'll have to, if I was going to be active in the application development market today, I would have to go back for retraining, right? So, but how do we make that sustainable, right? With kids that are coming out of school today, right? How do we make them consistent? If policy is not catching up with how fast the market is going, how do we make a sustainable talent intervention framework for future economic growth, right? And of course, we have to formulate strategies that will enable talent to adapt to the future of work. This is a well drawn out theme, the future of work, right? Apart from working from home, right? What would the future of jobs look like by the time robots take over some of these things, right? would we need to retrain entire sets of the population, right? It's an existential issue right now. So how do we do that? And of course, how do we drive robust talent policies, right? How do we make policy formulation dynamic and flexible, right? To be able to answer the fast movement or the changing dynamics in the ecosystem. These are some of the things that we will discuss here today. And I'm hoping that we will, if we don't have answers for all of these things, at least we should have moved the pendulum a little bit to be able to say, okay, right? We can drive sustainability here. We can drive interventions here. We can formulate something here to drive this ecosystem for future growth. And so we are hoping that with the mix of minds that are in here today, we will be able to come up with answers to some of these questions and to deliver on some of these objectives.